Hello and welcome to the interview. She has the same nationality and the same surname as the Turkish president, but the similarities stop there. Asli Erdogan has been one of the staunchest critics of Recep Erdogan's crackdown on opponents after the failed coup of July 2016. She's also denounced Europe's reluctance to speak openly and honestly about what's happening in Turkey. Asli Erdogan has written numerous novels and has received several prizes, including the Simone de Beauvoir Prize for Women's Freedom here in France. Last year, she was jailed for 136 days after being accused of undermining the state because of her links with a pro-Kurdish newspaper. Welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's start with this prize that was given to you, the Simone de Beauvoir Prize. When you were in prison last year, you were awarded several prizes which you could not pick up personally.
Yeah.
What did it mean to you to actually be here physically and be able to pick up this prize?
Well, it's almost like a miracle. I mean, after I was released from prison for a long time, they didn't let me out of Turkey. In fact, even after the judge gave back my passport, I couldn't get it from the Ministry of Interior. So I was almost giving it up. I thought I would be a prisoner of Turkey forever. But suddenly they, for one reason or other, said go. It was for another prize ceremony months ago, Erich Maria Remarque Prize. So, but Simone de Beauvoir Prize means much more to me than as a name, and in my own personal development, she's an important figure. I read her when I was 15. It deeply changed my life, opened my eyes, in fact. And imagine some young teenager reading Simone de Beauvoir in Istanbul and looking at her own life. So I'm very honored and to get the prize and to be able to get it is almost. Sometimes I think maybe I will wake up and it's a dream. I'm perhaps back in prison.
Of course, we'll come to that later because the trial is pending, of course. But obviously, the fact that you've been in Paris and you've had a lot of attention from the media, it's reinforced your status as an icon to those who've been repressed in Turkey. People see you as a symbol. Do you see yourself that way?
Surely not. I always define myself with one line. I'm only a writer, not with a capital W. I'm a writer. This is my job. This is the only job I do, sort of with some knowledge or some experience. I can dedicate my whole life to one thing, that is writing. And I haven't done much apart from writing a little column once in a while. And in Turkey, there are so many thousands and thousands of people really fighting politically out on the streets. Surely I was on the streets time to time, but never I saw myself in the front line.
You say you're only a writer, but does writing have a particular function? Does your writing have an impact, do you think? Perhaps long term, perhaps it can't be seen immediately now, but in the long term, given the current situation in Turkey?
I am surprised to find out, yes, that even before jail, that my writing, my articles meant something to people. And some of them even were 20 years ago. For example, one of my earlier articles, I think the best, on the rape of Kurdish girls by paramilitia, was discussed in Krakow. For example, these things I learned much, much later, that my articles did actually have some effect in people. That gave them at least the feeling that they were not alone. Yeah. That for prisoners, for example, I meant something, that Asli Erdogan can be our voice. Yeah. The work.
And in terms of your own imprisonment, I think people in Europe have a very vague grasp of exactly how surreal these situations are. Just give us a brief, because we don't have too much time, unfortunately, but how were the anti-terrorism charges used against you?
Really, you wouldn't believe me, but I was asked to be one of the advisors of the pro-Kurdish newspaper 5 years ago. And I said, I can only advise you on literary topics. I'll be the advisor of the cultural page. And the board of advisors was formed, and this was a symbolic board. We never had a meeting in our 5 years, let alone making a decision. We never met once. And after 5 years, they suddenly said, this board of advisors is ruling this paper, and this paper is the paper of PKK. Well, the paper is totally legal. For 22 years it exists. You are taking tax from this paper for 22 years. Suddenly, one day you say, this is illegal. They arrested the editor-in-chief, 2 editors-in-chief, plus out of this board of advisors, they chose 2, me and a 70-year-old Necmi Alpay, and they arrested us. So it is so incredible.
And Europe doesn't want to confront this explicitly.
I don't know. I mean, this is, even my case is enough to show that this country has passed certain thresholds. This is, you can't call this anything else but fascism.
Yeah.
I mean, the top guy says, I don't like this woman. I don't like the interview she gave. Not only they arrest me, but the scandal here is that they arrested me from 302. And one more point, the previous board of advisors to the same newspaper has 2 AKP parliamentarians. They are not charged. They are not
Well,
terrorists.
You've been in France, and just a few days before you came, the French president hosted President Erdogan. Erdogan accused journalists of being gardeners of terrorism. What's your feeling when you see the president of France, the country of the Enlightenment, saying we're not going to lecture other countries on human rights, whether it's to Erdogan or to Abdel Fattah al-Sisi of Egypt? What kind of, what do you feel when you see that?
Well, I say capitalism. I mean,
Capitalism.
Profit is profit, but I would really like to remind French people, if I may, that this is the country of Voltaire, Simone de Beauvoir, Sartre, a huge list, and you should be proud of these names, but being proud is not enough. You should try to understand what these people were actually trying to tell with such heavy work and prices and these concepts were not born just out of an intellectual game. These are concepts born of centuries of toil and bloodshed, and they should not be sold so easily.
To go back to the situation in Turkey for a moment, do you see any way out? Do you see the different opposition elements coming together, or are they too divided now?
Honestly, they always tell me I'm a pessimist, but I don't see any positive changes in the near future. I mean, the oppression is very strong. And as it goes stronger and stronger, the opposition gets, of course, weaker and weaker. Now, from one tweet, people are sent to jail. Thousands of university students. Europe only hears about the writers, the journalists. Thousands of university students are in jail just from one tweet.
So people are afraid of Twitter, obviously.
They're even afraid to breathe. I mean, how can you organize an opposition in that? You can't even write a tweet. Even the Twitter was closed down for some time. So the situation seems very grave. And not only people are arrested, some symbols like me, Ahmet Altan, a huge list, Selahattin Demirtas, but they are also sentenced. I mean, an HDP parliamentary was sentenced to 16 years last week. 16 years is no joke. They are asking life sentence for Ahmet Altan, aggravated life. For me, for many people. They start with 15 years and goes up to life sentence, and they will start giving those sentences
So
very soon.
What about your own trial? Are you pessimistic as well there about your chances of being acquitted? When is it? But it's in March.
It's in March.
Supposed to be March of this.
Well, the court is going on its rules. The lawyers was changed, the lawyer team. That really scared me because I got the feeling in the first court hearing that the judge team was replaced. The first judge was actually, he had respect for law. I had got that feeling. But that judge was replaced, which really scared me. But the new judge also seems to be someone who has respect for his own profession. And if things go, everybody in the prison from this case has been released. So the signals are positive. If everything goes the way it is going so far by law, I should be, and Necmi Alpay and all of us should be acquitted. But this is Turkey. You get a phone call. If that judge doesn't give you the sentence, they just change the judge.
So are you going to go back come what may? I mean, you must be tempted sometimes to just never go back. Or would that be an abdication of some sort of wider responsibility?
Yeah, it's a really nasty situation. Actually, I left Turkey for a prize ceremony, Erich Maria Remarque Prize, with a little suitcase, thinking that I would return in 3 days. My windows were even left open. And in Germany, they warned me, look, if you go back, maybe you will never come out. They will confiscate your passport. There's over 100,000 people. Their passports are confiscated. So I said, let me think. And this thinking is still going on because I have in a prize ceremony there, a book coming out there, so I have to keep moving. And I need my passport. So my life is cut into two, even my writing.
A life cut into many pieces. We'll have to end there. Thank you so much for being my guest, Asli Erdogan. And of course, we'll be following your trial very closely here on France 24 in our news bulletins. Thanks for watching. We'll be back very soon with more news here on France 24.